On a cool spring night, two desperate men break into a forgotten cemetery, hoping to score riches from a legendary grave. But when the coffin cracks open, they find more than gold. They awaken something ancient, seductive, and monstrously evil.
What's that? You want to be scared? Come with me. You will experience tales of horror, ghosts, and death. It is not recommended for the weak at heart. Listen in the dark. It's more fun that way. This is Weekly Spooky.
Hello, my spookies. It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time for a little spooky in your weekly. I'm your host and narrator, Enrique Couto, and we have a very special, eerie story for you tonight, courtesy of our good buddy, Bruce Haney. But before we get to that, I want to say thank you all so much for listening and for joining us at our little community on Facebook by going to facebook.com and typing in Weekly Spooky's Tomb of Terror. It's a little spot on the internet where myself, many of the authors, and many of you spookies hang out and share memes and scary news stories and just generally have a good time. So, if you haven't joined, please do consider heading to Facebook and typing in Weekly Spooky's Tomb of Terror. And of course, a humongous thank you to the folks who've headed to weeklyspooky.com/join and become a spooky patron. For as little as $1 a month, you get 2 bonus shows every single month and support the show directly. That's at weeklyspooky.com/join. Right now, we're about to wrap up the Strickfield miniseries, The April Fool. So now is a very good time to sign up. You'll also get access to exclusive audiobooks, creepypasta readings, and so much more at weeklyspooky.com/join. But now, as far as tonight goes, some people say the dead should be left to rest in peace. But others see graves not as sacred ground, but as opportunity. Tonight's story is about 2 men greedy, desperate, and willing to dig up anything for a quick payday. But when they break into a grave that was never meant to be disturbed, they find something worse than bones. So join me after this. The Grave Robbers by Bruce Haney. You seriously expect me to drive you out to a cemetery, knowing that you're going to dig up a body? Wally asked Fritz, then took a sip of beer. Everyone called him Fritz or Fritzy, but his name was Stephen Fritzmeyer. That night, Fritz had asked his coworker Wally Erickson to come drinking. They were at a little hole-in-the-wall joint by the river, called the Ash Street Saloon. Fritz had brought him out to tell Wally about the legend in his nearby small town. The one about a woman buried with all sorts of jewelry and riches. It'll be an easy score. It's an old pioneer cemetery. The broad was buried in 1902 or so. So no big deal. Anybody who cared for the old hag is long gone, Fritz said, taking a large drink from his glass. Okay, tell me again, how do you know this isn't just small-town gossip? Wally asked. Well, I have just heard it my whole life. It's like the local legend, you know? Fritz said. I need more info than that if I'm going to get involved in such a deplorable enterprise as this. You must have some proof. Have you even been to the cemetery to see if a lady named Hazel Aldrich is buried there? Wally asked. Of course! Me and my buddies used to ride our bikes out there as kids. It's a chintzy little cemetery, all cheap, simple headstones. Except for hers, Fritz explained. Oh yeah? Wally asked. Her headstone has a sculpture of a pretty woman in a shawl leaning against it, Fritz said. That is fancy, Wally agreed. See? I think, yeah, that's right. I remember the inscription. It said, Hazel Aldrich, beloved mother, blessed are the dead that die. Really? Wally asked. Yes, but it's not as cryptic as it sounds. It's a common abbreviation of a Bible passage. Weren't you an altar boy? Oh yeah, I know that. Let me think. Blessed are the dead who die in the Lord, Wally recited. Why do you think they shortened it? To save some bread, Fritz explained. But I thought she was rich, Wally asked. Fritz's jaw tightened and his brow furrowed as he looked at Wally. I don't know every little detail about her. Stop being a wet rag. This is a chance to make some serious cheddar, Fritz said. So, when do you want to do this? Wally asked. Why not tonight? Fritz said. Don't we need to prepare? Wally asked. You're right. Barkeep, 2 more shots of well whiskey, Fritz said, and smiled at Wally. A little liquid courage'll do you well, my friend. Wally was not Fritz's first choice for an accomplice, but he had an automobile and few of his buddies did. Most people who had cars at this time were too popular to hang around a guy like Fritz. Wally wasn't, which made him the perfect stooge. When Fritz was a teenager, he imagined living the good life, and growing up he did see the promise of that very life, but he just happened to come of age during the Great Depression, so instead of the house, car, and good-paying job, he worked in a factory, bummed rides from Wally when he could, and shared the rent with 2 other guys in a rat-infested studio apartment near the river. Not his idea of the American dream. It wasn't like Wally's car was that nice. It was a 15-year-old jalopy. Not a lot of older cars were around anymore. Many of them had been scrapped for the war effort. It had various dents and was missing the right side running board. The inside wasn't great either. Wally's seat was stacked with cardboard to stop the spring from the ripped seat from poking him in the butt. The passenger seat was nearly pristine, as Wally didn't have many passengers. Most people found Wally to be annoying. Did you see that car? Wally asked while looking through his rearview mirror after they had stopped by their work to borrow a couple of shovels. Yeah? Fritz asked. I think it was an undercover cop. The Fuzz? Yeah, an undercover one. You should have seen how he looked at us. He knows. He knows what? Fritz said belligerently. Well, you know, Wally stammered. I haven't told anyone about this plan except you, and I haven't been out of your sight, so tell me, Einstein, how would they know? This calmed Wally down, which pleased Fritz, who needed time to think about his options. If the coffin, as the legend said, was full of riches, would he really want to share them? What was the amount of money that was worth betraying his friend? His thought process was again interrupted by Wally's paranoia. Maybe the bartender overheard us, or maybe someone reported a car at the plant when we grabbed the shovels. Well, is the car following us? Fritz said with frustration. No, Wally admitted. All right, so maybe stop with the paranoia, or I'm gonna bop you in the nose, got me? Fritz asked. With that, They drove in silence, except for when Fritz gave directions. Hang a left. Okay, now turn right. I said right! After another mile. Okay, now turn off your lights and head down that road. Is that even a road? Wally asked. Yes, I rode it on my bike 1,000,000 times when I was a kid, Fritz explained. But have you seen an automobile drive down it? It's fine, we're almost there, geez, just go! The road, if it could be called that, was rough and overgrown with vegetation. Luckily, there were no ruts. This was likely because nobody had driven a vehicle on it in years. I feel like we're driving through a field. You sure we're on a road? Wally asked. Yes! This is dangerous, you know. My exhaust could catch the grass on fire. Then keep moving so it doesn't happen. God damn, Wally said as they hit a bump. What was that? Fritz asked. How the hell would I know? It's dark as hell out here and everything's covered in grass, Wally said. It was a small tree stump that they drove over. This could have been worse because it had caught and nearly tore out a brake line, and old cars like that had no safety features. If one line was out, the brakes were gone. As they approached the cemetery, Wally pressed on the brakes. They still worked. Fritz brought his bag out with him. What do you have in that bag anyway? Wally asked. For one, I brought a small gas lamp. That's good. I wasn't going to trust your jalopy to be the sole source of light. Knowing your luck, the poor thing would die right after we got the loot, Fritz joked. I also have a bottle of whiskey and some smokes. Fritz didn't tell him about the gun he brought.
Don't go away. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
As the men looked around, Wally could see that there wasn't much to this graveyard. No wrought iron gates, no signs, no crypts. Just a few bent, broken, and neglected headstones. That was until he saw her headstone. It was intricate and daunting in its size and mood, and appeared to be the only one that had been maintained. Ah, looks like you found it. Fritz lit his cigarette using the small gas lamp as a lighter. Hopefully they didn't spend all their money on that headstone, Wally said. If the rumors around town are true, there should be plenty of extra loot, Fritz said, while putting his shovel into the dirt. How were they so loaded anyhow? I wouldn't expect that town to have any industry that could produce that much wealth, Wally asked. Grab a shovel and help, Fritz demanded, and they got to the task of digging up the grave. After shoveling just a few scoops of dirt, Wally asked again. Seriously though, we could be wasting our time. How were they so wealthy? Well, that's an even bigger rumor. Fritz sighed, bringing in air to tell the story. You dig for a bit and I'll tell you, Fritz offered. Okay, I guess that's fair, Wally said. It wasn't fair, especially since Fritz had decided that if the haul was enough to warrant it, he was going to shoot Wally with the gun he had in his bag. Heck, he thought, I already have the hole, and Hazel Aldrich has no way to complain about some extra company. All right, so here's the story. Around the turn of the century, the town had been hit by some kind of plague or something that killed many powerful people in town, Fritz said. TB? Wally asked. Maybe. Maybe not, Fritz said. It took a while for people to realize that there was a trend with all these deaths, because this disease would wipe out the whole family. Distant relatives would be the ones to come to take care of the estate, always waiting a week or two for any lingering sickness to clear. But each out-of-towner would be surprised to find that not all their relatives were accounted for, and though they were allegedly wealthy, they had no real valuables in their homes. Most relatives would get the money that was in the bank, so they left slightly satisfied and without too much questioning. But the trend that the townsfolk noticed was that Hazel Aldrich had been seen as a dinner guest before each family began to get sick. Yet, she was always in good health. A real-life Typhoid Mary? Wally asked. Maybe, Fritz answered. Then what? Was she poisoning them? Wally asked. Maybe. Both would be more believable than the story I heard, Fritz said. Then what is it? I'm jumping out of this hole and getting out of here if you try to tell me she was a vampire, Wally said. Maybe, maybe not. But if you ask me, she was a prisoner. Some people have said a witch, and others have said she was something else. Like what? Wally demanded. Something evil. Something only written in those cheap pulps like weird tales, Fritz said. Well, Wally began to say, but stopped because his shovel hit something solid. Is that what I think I heard? Fritz asked. Yes, Wally said. Fritz jumped back into the grave with his shovel to help. He was now motivated that the big score could be minutes away. The two dug at a quickened pace until the coffin lid was exposed. Look at that lid. She must have been rich, Wally said, while leaning over and wiping the dirt from it, revealing the large silver cross that was attached. Wow. Is that silver? That cross alone will bring in some spending cash. Possibly get me my own wheels, Fritz said. After my share, of course, Wally asked, as Fritz began to pry on the cross with a screwdriver that he pulled out of his back pocket. Of course, Fritz said, not knowing if that was a lie just yet. The score wasn't quite big enough to justify the killing so far. As soon as the cross was removed, they felt a stirring underneath their feet. Wally was scared and jumped out of the hole. Where are you going? Fritz demanded. Shh, something's moving under there, Wally stammered. I'm sure it's just rats, Fritz said, revealing his anger. Help me with this lid if you expect to get any of this score, Fritz said, and Wally jumped back down into the grave. A moment later, they both were flung up and out of the hole as the coffin lid exploded upwards.
You're not safe yet. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
The two landed on the ground and stared as a woman floated out of the grave. She was wearing a beautiful and intricate dress from the turn of the century, with long, flowing brown hair hanging down past her shoulders. She was the most beautiful woman that the two had ever seen. What the hell? Fritz said. Hazel turned her head sharply towards him and made him her target. Such language. You are not a man of culture, are you? I'm a man of profit. I don't give a damn about culture, Fritz said. Oh, well, I can respect that. How do you feel about killing? She asked. Fritz didn't respond right away. He stared at her and thought about what he was seeing, then decided to play this real cool. Killing? If it gets me a couple bucks in my pocket, I don't mind it, Fritz said. What the heck? Wally yelled. Shut up, Fritz said, knowing that a person with this much power could be his meal ticket. Fritz, while trying to present a level of confidence, got up and approached the woman. Hazel, I presume, Fritz said, and held his hand out. She took the cue and put her hand out to his, and he kissed it. Her flesh was freezing. How can I be to your assistance, my lady? Fritz said. First, help me find and kill the people that shoved me in that wretched box. Fritz stepped back a few feet to look into the grave. There was nothing else in it. Other than the cross, she was wearing the rest of what was supposed to be his big score. The jewelry she had on, he estimated to be worth a couple grand. Who are you looking for? Fritz asked. What are you doing? Wally demanded. Do you mind? Fritz yelled at Wally. Fritz, you're not that fond of your friend here, are you? Not all that attached, Hazel asked. How do you know my name? She didn't respond. No, not incredibly, he decided to tell her. Well, just to help our communication, do you mind if I use him to satiate my hunger? That way I can concentrate on our conversation without hunger or interruption. She asked. Sure, do what you gotta do, Fritz said, and waved goodbye to Wally, who had already jumped to his feet and was running to his car. With grace, she leapt to him in one elegant jump, with her hair and dress blowing in the breeze. When she bit Wally's throat, Fritz thought, okay, she is a vampire. But then she bit deeper, and Fritz could see her chewing. And I thought we were the ghouls, Fritz said to himself. Fritz watched in horror as she consumed his flesh until there wasn't much left but a heap of bones with loose bits of meat on them. She ate his heart. She ate his liver. The only organs left behind were his intestines, bladder, and brain. And that was only because it was encased in his skull. When she was done, she was covered in gore and blood. Fritz tried to pretend like he wasn't affected by this, but his shaking knees gave him away. So, do you still want to be my assistant? She cackled. Your money problems will be over. You will live a life even better than what you dreamt as a child, she offered. Yes, Fritz stuttered. Well, first things first. I'm excited to see we have an automobile. I hadn't gotten around to obtaining one before I was shoved in that box. They were never as reliable as a horse and carriage anyhow. Less elegant, too, she explained. Cars are faster, though. Maybe not then, but this car can get moving, even for how cruddy it looks, Fritz said, while gaining some of his confidence back. May I drive? She asked. She was pretending that he had a choice in the matter. If he had known how horrible being her servant was, he would have gladly chosen Wally's fate. She was a quick learner behind the wheel, and she sped down the dirt road with little worry about what the bumps could be doing to the vehicle. They hit the same stump that Wally had hit coming in. Fritz flew out of his seat and slammed into the roof. "Watch it, lady," Fritz said. She didn't slow down, and she didn't hit the brakes. If she had, they would have noticed that this time, that old stump did, in fact, rip out the brake line. When she hit the main road, she started going faster and even figured out how to shift through the gears. "You are booking it!" Fritz yelled to be heard over the road noise. "Ah, it's nothing. I have got horses up to nearly this speed before," she offered. "How much faster will this thing go?" "I'm not sure. I haven't taken it this fast before. Wally didn't like me driving his car, and he hated it when I drove fast," Fritz said. In response, she floored it. "Hey, be careful. There's a hidden turn up ahead," Fritz warned. She had wonderful vision and a good understanding of momentum, so she estimated that a couple 100 yards was about perfect to slam on the brakes. She hoped that Fritz wouldn't end up flying out the window. She thought that she would get good use out of him. When she slammed on the brakes, he didn't fly out the window, and that was because they didn't slow down at all. With that ripped-out brake line, they had no way to stop. The car didn't slow down at all. With the turn coming up rapidly, she had two choices. She could keep moving forward and plow into the timber, or try to make the turn. She went for the turn. The car rolled over 4 times and smashed into the trees she would have hit if she had gone straight. Fritz did fly out of the car, but only after smashing his face into the hard metal dash twice during the first 3 flips of the vehicle, which made his skull crack open. Her being the supernatural creature that she was, climbed out of the wreckage unscathed. Before she left the scene, she ate the remains of Fritz, feeling upset that she didn't get to torture him as she had hoped. "It would have been fun breaking your spirit," she said, as she looked at his cracked open head that she held in her hands. She put her fingers into the opening of his skull and used them to crack it the rest of the way open, like a pistachio. Then she pulled out his brain. She munched on it as she walked back towards the town that had trapped her in that grave. Well, my spookies, I hope that story left you hungry for more, but still sated your demonic appetite. Big thanks to Bruce Haney for yet another really fun and creepy story. Nothing beats a little stroll through a cemetery late at night. It really helps keep that October vibe going and going all through the year. And speaking of going and going all through the year, thank you again for joining us. I know that the time when most people want to listen to Weekly Spooky is around October, November, December, but you, listening right now, you are the spooky diehard, the spooky who loves October feelings all year long. You're one of me, and I'm so happy to help you get your fix. And I want to say thank you so much to all you spookies who've joined us over at Patreon at weeklyspooky.com/join. It really does make a big difference in helping the show keep going and growing. With almost 100 spookies signed up right now, if you've been thinking about joining up, now is the perfect time. And speaking of, I want to say an extra special thank you to our Patreon podcast boosters, folks who pay just a little bit more to hear their names at the end of the show. And they are Kate and Lulu, Jessica Fuller, Johnny Nix, Jenny Green, Amber Hansford, Brent McCullough, Karen Weemet, Jack Kerr, and Craig Cohen. Thank you all so much. And if you want to hear your name at the end of every episode of Weekly Spooky from my spooky, silky voice, well, just go to weeklyspooky.com/join and choose a tier at $15 a month or higher. But remember, just $1 a month gets you 2 bonus shows every month and so much more. But now it's time for me to get out of here, but expect a very special spooky compilation this Friday. So, for myself, for my executive producers Rob Fields, Mark Shields, and Bobbletopia.com, as well as my producer Dan Wilder and my composer Ray Mattis, I will talk at you next time. And if you're at Cinema Wasteland this weekend in Cleveland, I'll see you there.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to find your way back next week. But for now, you are safe. Trust me.